What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And on today's video we're going to be looking at HOKA's Mark V. Now this video is my first impressions review. My full review will come after I've run at least 100 miles in this shoe, but I've broken from what I usually do just a little bit. Usually I bring you my first impressions after one run, and I have put a couple of runs in this shoe so I can really develop those first impressions. And overall I'm pretty impressed. Now HOKA had some big shoes to fill, no pun intended, with their Mark IV, which was hugely popular last year. And in fact I didn't get the Mark IV last year, so I didn't actually experience all the hype. But you better believe as soon as the Mark V dropped, I bought this pair. And by the way, I bought this pair with my own money. No one sent this shoe to me and no one is paying me to make this review, but I was really looking forward to the Mark V being released so I could try it out. And the Mark V comes in at $140 US. So it's right there with comparable other options. But I think the HOKA Mark V represents some pretty good value for a lot of you out there. And that's mainly in the form of weight, because this is a very light shoe. Now HOKA reports that a men's size 9 weighs in at 8.2 ounces, which is about 232 grams. But my US men's size 12.5 tips the scale at 9.2 ounces or 261 grams. So it's a pretty light shoe. It feels incredibly light here in my hand. And the observant of you will note that I did say that I have a US size 12.5, which means I have gone down half a size from my usual size. And I guess we'll get into sizing right now, because for me at least it does not fit true to size. Or I should say it doesn't fit true to size compared with some other shoe manufacturers. With HOKA it seems that I am a US men's size 12.5 across the board. In all my other HOKA shoes I have been a 12.5 and they seem to fit fairly well. But it does seem that HOKA shoes tend to run a little long, and that's really no big deal as long as you get the right size. Now as far as fit goes, the HOKA Mark V fit my foot beautifully. It felt very comfortable to slide in and I didn't have any problems on the run. There were no hot spots. But I want you guys to just take a look at my laces, because I actually came back from a run this morning and I just took the shoes off and then decided to film this video now. We can see that the laces are just a little close together. You know, like running up and down the eyelet chain. The two eyelet chains are close together, and they become even closer when I have them all cinched down when I'm running. Now, I do have to say that that doesn't affect the fit. The fit feels really good. I get a lot of support across my midfoot, but it does indicate that there is a little too much volume here in the top if the eyelet chains are too close together. And if you can see, I'm not sure how the light is showing these are black shoes, so it's not showing up very well, but there is a little bit of kind of dimpling right here where the upper is kind of bunching up just a little at the bottom of the eyelet chain. Maybe it's just my foot shape, and who's to say what an ideal amount of space is between the eyelet chains. So the Mark V is made to be kind of like a jack of all trades. You really can do anything in this shoe. It is light enough for you to pick up the pace, it is soft enough for you to run for a long time, and there is enough cushion here in the midsole to protect your feet, to protect your body, and really give you that comfortable ride that we're all looking for. Okay, let's start at the top. We're going to work our way down. Around the heel collar we have an appropriate amount of padding. There's nothing too over the top. It is just the right amount of padding to do its job. You can see this big heel flare right here on the heel counter, and the heel counter is fairly rigid. You can feel that plastic piece right in the back. And again, as far as lockdown and fit goes, I didn't have any issues. I had no heel slip, and once the laces were locked down, my foot was in there and good to go. HOKA is using a Krill Jacquard engineered mesh upper, and this mesh upper, it has a lot of stability to it, so the shoe doesn't sink down into itself. And I did see some of the early reviewers saying that this new Jacquard mesh upper was a bit hot, but I am here in Florida and I've got to tell you that wasn't really my experience. However, I am comparing it to other shoes with a much heavier upper that I think make my foot run hot. Now obviously it's no racing shoe, it doesn't have that super thin single layer mesh where you can see your foot through the top of the shoe, but I think HOKA has actually struck a pretty good balance with this new Jacquard mesh upper. It gave me a lot of support, and once it was on I really didn't have to think about it. Moving down to the outsole. Now this is where HOKA has made some changes from the Mark IV. HOKA is using their ProFly Plus midsole, and you can see this by the darker midsole foam on the top, and then we have a rubberized EVA foam on the bottom. Now this ProFly Plus midsole is super responsive. This is what gives the shoe its pop. And the rubberized EVA outsole right below it, that's going to give the shoe, again, it's going to give it a little rigidity, and it's going to make the shoe a little firmer. I think if we just had the ProFly Plus, the shoe would be a bit cushy. And once a shoe gets too cushy, it becomes less responsive, or at least it doesn't feel as good when you're picking up the pace. So I think this rubberized EVA foam on the bottom, I think that really balances it out, and it makes the two more than the sum of their parts. Now of course, because it is a rubberized EVA, we don't have any outsole rubber. The EVA midsole foam has been rubberized to make it more resilient so you run right on it. Now I've never been too sure about this. I get the idea. I like having a lighter shoe. I like having no rubber on the bottom, but I always question the resiliency of a rubberized EVA foam. But you're gonna have to check back in for my full review after 100 miles in the shoe to see how it actually wears down. For now, I've done a couple of runs in it and there's really nothing to speak of. There's no wear, which is a good thing. At this this point, I've only run about 20 miles in this shoe. Oh, for those of you that care, the HOKA Mach 5 is vegan, and it is made with recycled materials. Always a good thing. So I know HOKA promotes this shoe as a versatile training shoe, and I have to agree with them 100%. So in the approximate 20 miles that I've taken in this shoe before I made this review for you guys, I've taken it out on every kind of run. I've run slow and easy, and I've picked up the pace at tempo, and I've run a few intervals. And there is no one specific type of run that this shoe excels more than the other. It really is a jack of all trades. Before I went out for the first run, I put the shoe on, I walked around the house, and I was surprised at the squishiness of the shoe, just walking around the house. And of course, when a shoe is too squishy, I think to myself, it's going to be good for long runs, but maybe not for the shorter, faster stuff. But the shoe really tends to come alive when you start picking up the pace. And for a non-plated shoe, it is incredibly responsive. It feels really good underfoot. And what I liked most was the stability. That solid lockdown of the upper and the fairly wide forefoot makes each footfall feel very stable. Oh, and I am reminded of this because it's actually raining outside as I'm making this video, but I didn't run in the rain, I didn't run in the wet when I was testing the shoe at all. So I can't speak to how well the rubberized EVA outsole grips the road, but in my past HOKA shoes where they've used a rubberized EVA, I haven't had any problems, and I don't foresee it to be a problem in this shoe. Now I realized that I said we're going to start at the top and work our way down, but I skipped right over the tongue, and the tongue is pretty important. The tongue is a lay flat, gusseted tongue. It has some padding strategically placed right at the top, and then that padding runs right down the tongue, so when your laces cinch over your midfoot, you're not going to get any pinch from those laces. It actually works really well, and I'm glad they use such a thin tongue to save weight. I know a lot of the daily trainers, they like to use a slightly thicker tongue. I question if that's really necessary, and it just adds to the weight of the shoe. HOKA has clearly kept this in mind by having this nice thin tongue. And the least important thing, or perhaps the most important thing, is styling. Guys, generally speaking, I'm not a fan of black shoes, but there's something about the styling of the Mach 5 that made me want to get it in the black colorway. Maybe because it's not all black. I probably wouldn't have bought it if it was just black on black on black, but I do like this kind of zebra colorway here. It makes a relatively boring color, black, kind of pop with little accents. You know what I'm saying? Other than that, so far, I'm pretty pleased with the HOKA Mach 5. I am looking forward to putting a lot of miles in this shoe. Again, I'm really curious to see how the outsole rubber stands up to the punishment of lots and lots of miles. I don't want to rush it. Let's just put the miles into this shoe and see what happens. Hey guys, let me know. Did you run in the HOKA Mach 4 last year, and are you thinking of getting the Mach 5 this year? And guys, thanks for staying all the way to the end of this video. Be sure to give it a like if you got any value, if you were entertained, and subscribe if you're not already. I post at least 2 new running videos a week. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.